My name is Jessica Romano. I'm 29 years old, a marketing manager living in Portland, Oregon, in the townhouse I share with my husband Kyle. We've been married for 18 months, and I thought our life together was solid, built on trust and love. Everything seemed perfect until our anniversary arrived. That morning I woke up excited, ready to celebrate with the man I'd chosen to spend my life with. But instead of flowers or a sweet message, I received a video on my phone. A video that shattered everything I believed in. It was from my mother, Diana. The footage showed her and my father, Frank, with Kyle in a hotel room. What I saw made my stomach drop, my hands shake, my entire world collapse. They weren't just talking. They were doing things no parents should ever do with their daughter's husband. And they filmed it. They wanted me to see it. They sent it to me on purpose on our anniversary like some sick gift wrapped in betrayal. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone trembling in my grip, watching something so vile I could barely process it. My parents. My husband. Together. The video was clear, intentional, filmed from multiple angles like they'd planned it. My mother's face, my father's hands, Kyle's voice saying things that made me want to scream. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident caught on camera. This was deliberate, calculated, meant to destroy me. And it worked. In that moment, staring at the screen, I felt like I was drowning. My chest tightened, my vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. How could they do this? How could the people who raised me, who walked me down the aisle, who hugged Kyle at our wedding, turn around and betray me like this? And Kyle, the man who promised to love and honor me, who kissed me goodnight just hours ago, how could he do this in our home, in our city, with my own parents? I want you to imagine receiving something like that. Picture opening your phone on a day that's supposed to be special, only to see the people you trust most tearing your life apart. What would you do? Would you confront them immediately? Would you run? Would you break down and cry? Or would you find the strength to fight back? I didn't know what to do. I just sat there, frozen, the video looping in my mind even after I stopped the playback. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I wanted to throw it across the room, smash it against the wall, make it disappear. But I couldn't, because that video was evidence. Evidence of the sickest betrayal I'd ever experienced. And deep down, even in my shock, I knew I'd need it. I knew this wasn't over. This was just the beginning of something darker. Something I'd have to navigate if I wanted to survive. 2 weeks before that video arrived, my parents showed up at my townhouse in the Pearl District unannounced. I was making coffee in my kitchen when the doorbell rang, and there they were, standing on my porch with overnight bags and tired smiles. Diana, my mom, looked worn out, her makeup slightly smudged like she'd been crying. Frank, my dad, stood behind her, his jaw tight, arms crossed. "We need to stay with you for a bit, sweetheart," my mom said, stepping inside before I could even respond. Her voice was soft, almost pleading, like she was asking for a favor she knew I couldn't refuse. I glanced at the bags, then at Kyle, who was sitting on the couch scrolling through his phone. He looked up, eyebrows raised, but didn't say anything. My dad followed my mom in, muttering something about their house having issues, water damage or something. He wasn't clear. They needed a place to crash while repairs were being done. It sounded reasonable enough. I mean, they're my parents. What was I supposed to say? No. I set them up in our guest room upstairs, the one with the nice view of the street, and the small balcony Kyle and I barely used. My mom unpacked immediately, hanging her clothes in the closet like she'd be staying a while. My dad settled into the armchair by the window, flipping through his phone with a distant look on his face. I asked them how long they'd be staying. "Just a week, maybe 2, my mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "We'll be out of your hair soon, don't worry." But even as she said it, something felt off. Her tone was too casual, too rehearsed, like she'd practiced that line before arriving. My dad didn't even look up from his phone. He just nodded, his expression unreadable. I tried to shake the feeling. They were my parents. They'd raised me, supported me through college, been there for my wedding. If they needed help, of course I'd let them stay. Kyle didn't seem bothered either. He shook my dad's hand, hugged my mom, told them to make themselves at home. He was always good with them, always polite, always eager to impress. That was one of the things I loved about him when we first met. He fit into my family so easily, like he'd always been part of it. The first few days were normal enough. My mom cooked dinner most nights, filling the house with the smell of her famous lasagna and garlic bread. My dad watched sports in the living room, the volume a little too loud, but I didn't complain. Kyle came home from work, kissed me on the cheek, chatted with my parents over dinner like everything was fine. We'd sit around the table, laughing at my dad's bad jokes, listening to my mom's stories about their neighbors back in West Lynn. It felt almost nice, like we were a close family again. But then I started noticing things. Small things at first, easy to brush off. My mom would touch Kyle's arm when she talked to him, her hand lingering just a second too long. She'd laugh at his jokes a little too hard, leaning in close like they were sharing some private moment. My dad would compliment Kyle constantly, telling him how lucky I was to have such a handsome, successful husband. He'd clap Kyle on the back, squeeze his shoulder, stand a little too close when they talked. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself they were just being friendly, that I was reading too much into innocent gestures. But the unease grew. Kyle started acting different too. He'd come home later than usual, claiming he had showings or client meetings. He'd shower as soon as he got in, even if he didn't seem dirty or sweaty. He'd check his phone constantly, smiling at messages he wouldn't share with me. When I asked him about his day, he'd give short, vague answers. Busy, he'd say. Lots of properties to look at. Same old stuff. But his eyes wouldn't meet mine. He'd look past me, distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. At night, in bed, he'd roll away from me, facing the wall, his breathing shallow and quick. When I tried to touch him, he'd flinch or make an excuse. Tired, babe. Long day. Maybe tomorrow. Stung, but I didn't push. I figured he was stressed. Real estate could be demanding, and having my parents around probably added pressure. He was just trying to keep everyone happy. That's what I told myself. My mom started spending more time with Kyle during the day. She'd wait for him to come home, offering him a drink or a snack before I even had a chance to greet him. She'd sit next to him on the couch, closer than necessary, asking about his work, his clients, his goals. She'd touch his knee when she laughed, her fingers light but deliberate. I'd walk into the room and find them mid-conversation, their voices dropping to whispers the moment they saw me. "Oh, we were just talking about the housing market," my mom would say, smiling too brightly. Kyle would nod, clearing his throat, suddenly very interested in his phone. My dad wasn't much better. He'd pull Kyle aside for private chats, closing the door to the guest room or stepping out onto the balcony where I couldn't hear them. When I asked what they were talking about, my dad would shrug. "Man stuff," he'd say. "Nothing important." But the secrecy gnawed at me. Why couldn't they talk in front of me? What were they hiding? One evening I came home early from work, cutting out of a meeting because I had a headache. I opened the front door quietly, not wanting to disturb anyone if they were resting. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the TV in the living room. I set my bag down by the door and walked toward the kitchen, planning to grab some water and lie down. But then I heard voices upstairs. Low, murmured, coming from the direction of the guest room. I froze, my hand on the banister, listening. It was my mom's voice, soft and flirtatious, followed by Kyle's laugh, the kind of laugh he used to give me when we first started dating. My heart started pounding. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking under my weight. The guest room door was slightly ajar, just enough for me to see inside without being seen. My mom was sitting on the bed, her hand on Kyle's thigh. He was leaning in, his face close to hers, smiling in a way that made my stomach. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Turn. My dad was standing by the window watching them, his expression unreadable. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the body language was clear. This wasn't innocent. This wasn't normal. I backed away, my chest tight, my hands shaking. I didn't confront them. I didn't burst in and demand answers. I just left, slipping out of the house as quietly as I'd entered. I drove around Portland for an hour, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down I knew better. That night, Kyle came to bed late, smelling like cologne I didn't recognize. I pretended to be asleep, my back to him, my eyes squeezed shut. He climbed in beside me, his movements careful, like he didn't want to wake me. I felt the mattress shift as he settled in, heard his breathing slow. But I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the wall, replaying what I'd seen upstairs. My mom's hand on his leg. His smile. My dad watching. It all felt wrong, twisted like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The next morning I tried to act normal. I made breakfast, chatted with my parents, kissed Kyle goodbye as he left for work. But inside I was screaming. I needed answers. I needed to know if what I'd seen was real, or if my mind was playing tricks on me. So I decided to pay attention, to watch them more closely, to catch them if something was really going on. I started coming home at random times, taking long lunches, calling Kyle unexpectedly. At first, nothing seemed out of place. But then I noticed my mom's perfume lingering in Kyle's car. I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a hotel room at the Riverside, dated 2 days ago. When I asked him about it, he said it was for a client meeting, that the client wanted privacy to discuss a big deal. But the receipt showed a room booked for 3 hours in the middle of the afternoon. Who books a hotel room for 3 hours for a business meeting? I started losing sleep, my mind running through scenarios, each one worse than the last. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, Kyle sleeping soundly beside me, and I'd feel this overwhelming urge to shake him awake and demand the truth. But I didn't. I waited. I watched. I gathered my thoughts, trying to figure out my next move. My parents were still acting like everything was fine, like they were just innocent houseguests needing temporary shelter. My mom would hug me before bed, telling me how grateful she was that I'd taken them in. My dad would pat my shoulder, calling me his sweet girl, saying he didn't know what they'd do without me. It made me sick. If they were doing what I thought they were doing, their words were nothing but lies, manipulation designed to keep me compliant while they betrayed me under my own roof. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. So I called Rachel, my best friend since high school. She works in tech, knows about cameras and software and all that stuff I don't understand. I met her at Brewhaven, our favorite coffee shop on NW 23rd, and told her everything. She listened, her face growing darker with every word. "Jessica, that's messed up," she said, stirring her latte. "You think they're really doing that?" I nodded, my throat tight. I don't want to believe it, but I need to know for sure. Rachel leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Okay, here's what we do. Set up a hidden camera in your house. Something small, something they won't notice. If they're up to something, you'll catch it." I hesitated. The idea of spying in my own home felt invasive, paranoid. But what choice did I have? I couldn't confront them without proof. They just deny it, make me feel crazy, turn it around on me. So I agreed. Rachel ordered a tiny camera online, one that looked like a phone charger. It arrived 2 days later, and she came over to help me set it up. We placed it in the living room, angled toward the couch and the stairs, where it could capture anyone coming or going. My parents didn't suspect a thing. Neither did Kyle. For the next week, I went to work every day, my stomach in knots, wondering what the camera was recording. I checked the footage every night after everyone went to bed, sitting in my car in the driveway with my phone, scrolling through hours of mundane activity. My mom cooking, my dad watching TV, Kyle coming home. Nothing unusual. I started to think maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd overreacted, let my imagination run wild. But then on the 8th day, I saw something that confirmed my worst fears. It was midday when I was supposed to be at work. Kyle had come home early, letting himself in with his key. My mom was waiting for him in the living room, dressed in a way I'd never seen her dress at home. Her hair done, makeup perfect. She greeted him with a hug that lasted too long, her hands sliding down his back. My dad appeared from the kitchen, a knowing smile on his face. The three of them talked for a few minutes, their voices too low for the camera to pick up clearly. Then my mom took Kyle's hand and led him upstairs. My dad followed. I sat in my car, phone in hand, watching the empty living room on the screen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. They were upstairs, together, in my house, doing God knows what. I couldn't watch anymore. I couldn't sit there and wait for them to come back down. I drove to Rachel's apartment, my hands shaking so badly I almost ran a red light. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "What happened?" she asked. I showed her the footage. Her face went pale. "Jessica, this is bad. Really bad. You need to get a lawyer. Now." I called attorney James Caldwell the next morning. Rachel had recommended him, Said he was the best family lawyer in Portland. Someone who'd fight for me and not let them get away with anything. I met him in his office in the Pearl District, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I told him everything, showed him the footage from the camera, the hotel receipt, the text messages Kyle had been deleting but that I'd recovered from our phone bill. James listened, his expression grim, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "This is a clear case of emotional abuse and betrayal," he said. "We can use this in divorce proceedings, and depending on what else we find, there may be grounds for other legal action." I nodded, my chest tight. I didn't want to think about divorce. I didn't want to accept that my marriage was over. But the evidence was right there, undeniable. Kyle had betrayed me. And my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, had helped him do it. James outlined a plan. First, we'd gather more evidence. He recommended hiring a private investigator to follow Kyle and my parents, to document everything they did. Then we'd file for divorce, citing infidelity and emotional cruelty. We'd also explore legal action against my parents for harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It sounded overwhelming, but James was confident. "You're going to get through this, Jessica," he said. "And you're going to come out stronger." I wanted to believe him. I hired Marcus Webb, a private investigator James recommended. Marcus was in his 40s, ex-military, with a no-nonsense attitude that made me feel safe. He started following Kyle immediately, tracking his movements, photographing him with my parents at restaurants, hotels, even at their house in West Lynn when they claimed to still be staying with me. The evidence piled up fast. Photos of Kyle and my mom holding hands in a parking lot. Video of my dad and Kyle meeting at a bar, laughing and drinking like old friends. Receipts from hotels, dinners, even a jewelry store where Kyle had bought something expensive, something he'd never given to me. Marcus delivered his findings in a thick folder, his face sympathetic. "I'm sorry you're going through this," he said. "But you've got everything you need." I thanked him, took the folder home, and locked myself in my bedroom. I spread the photos and documents across my bed, staring at them, trying to process the magnitude of what they'd done. This wasn't just an affair. This was a coordinated effort, a conspiracy involving the three people I trusted most. They'd planned this. They'd executed it. And they'd done it all while living under my roof, eating my food, pretending to care about me. The morning of October 15th started like any other day. I woke up at 6:30, the alarm on my phone buzzing softly beside me. Kyle was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his messages. He glanced at me when I stirred, offered a quick smile, then went back to his screen. "Happy anniversary, babe," he said, his voice flat, automatic, like he was reading from a script. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, expecting more. Expecting flowers or a card or at least a kiss. But he just stood, grabbed his clothes from the dresser, and headed to the bathroom. I heard the shower turn on, the water running for what felt like forever. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling a knot form in my stomach. This wasn't how anniversaries were supposed to feel. This wasn't how marriage was supposed to feel. My parents were already awake downstairs. I could hear my mom humming in the kitchen, the smell of bacon drifting up through the vents. When I came down, she was at the stove, flipping pancakes, a bright smile on her face. "Morning, sweetheart," she said, too cheerful, too forced. "Big day today, right? Your anniversary." I nodded, pouring myself coffee, my hands still shaking from the anxiety that had been building for weeks. My dad was at the table, reading the newspaper, barely acknowledging me. Kyle came down a few minutes later, dressed in a sharp suit, his hair still damp from the shower. He grabbed a piece of toast, kissed my mom on the cheek, which made my stomach turn, and headed for the door. "I'll see you tonight," he said to me, not even looking back. "We'll do something nice." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. I sat at the table, pushing my food around my plate, unable to eat. My mom kept glancing at me, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "You okay, honey?" she asked. "You seem tense." I forced a smile. "Just tired," I said. "Work's been crazy." She nodded, turning back to the stove, but I could feel her watching me, calculating, like she was trying to figure out how much I knew. My dad folded his newspaper, stood and stretched. "Think I'll head out for a walk," he said. "Get some fresh air." My mom agreed, said she'd come along. They both left, leaving me alone in the house for the first time in weeks. I sat there in the silence, my mind racing. This was it. This was the day I'd been dreading. I didn't know what was coming, but I could feel it, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Around 10 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. My heart started pounding before I even opened it. I clicked on the notification and there it was. A video file. No message, no explanation, just the file. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play button. Part of me knew I shouldn't watch it. Part of me knew that whatever was in that video would change everything. But I couldn't stop myself. I pressed play. The video started with shaky footage like someone was setting up a camera on a tripod. Then the image stabilized and I saw a hotel room. The Riverside Hotel. I recognized the decor from photos online. The bed was visible in the center of the frame, neatly made with white sheets. Then I saw movement. My mother walked into frame wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. Something low-cut and expensive-looking. She was laughing, her hand trailing along the edge of the bed. Then my father appeared, shirtless, his expression smug, satisfied. And then Kyle. My husband. Kyle walked into frame, his tie loosened, his shirt half unbuttoned. He was smiling, the kind of smile I used to think was reserved for me. I wanted to stop the video. I wanted to throw my phone across the room and pretend I'd never seen it. But I couldn't move. I sat there frozen, watching as my mother reached for Kyle, pulling him closer. Watching as my father moved behind him, his hands on Kyle's shoulders. Watching as the three of them moved together in ways that made my skin crawl, made my stomach heave, made every part of me scream in horror and disbelief. The video went on for 5 minutes. 5 minutes of my parents and my husband doing things I couldn't unsee, couldn't unhear, couldn't forget. They were laughing. They were enjoying it. This wasn't some drunken mistake or moment of weakness. This was planned, choreographed, filmed deliberately. They wanted me to see this. They wanted me to know. When the video finally ended, I sat there, staring at the black screen, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the table, and I just stared at it, like it was some kind of weapon that had just gone off in my hands. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, maybe hours. Time didn't make sense anymore. Everything felt slow and fast at the same time, like I was underwater, drowning, unable to reach the surface. My chest hurt. My head hurt. My whole body hurt like I'd been physically beaten. I picked up my phone again, my fingers numb, and scrolled up to see who'd sent the video. The number wasn't saved in my contacts, but I recognized the area code. It was local. Portland. I tried calling it back, but it went straight to voicemail, no greeting, just a generic message. I texted the number. Who is this? Why did you send me this? No response. I sat there waiting, my heart pounding, my mind spinning with questions I couldn't answer. Who had filmed this? Who had sent it? And why today? Why our anniversary? Then another message came through. This time from my mother's actual number. Happy anniversary, sweetheart. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We'll see you tonight for dinner. Can't wait to celebrate with you and Kyle. I stared at the message, my vision blurring with rage and tears. She'd sent me that video. Or she'd helped send it. And now she was texting me like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just destroyed my entire life. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her and demand answers. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed a plan. I couldn't just react. If I confronted them now, they'd deny it. They'd gaslight me, tell me I was seeing things, that the video was fake, that I was imagining things. I needed to be smart. I needed to be strategic. I called Rachel. She answered on the second ring. Jess, what's wrong? She asked, her voice immediately concerned. I could barely get the words out. They sent me a video, I said, my voice cracking. My parents and Kyle. They filmed themselves. Rachel went quiet. Then she said, I'm coming over. Don't do anything until I get there. She arrived 20 minutes later, letting herself in with the spare key I'd given her years ago. She found me in the living room, still sitting at the table, my phone in front of me. I showed her the video. I watched her face as she watched it, saw the color drain from her cheeks, saw her jaw clench. Jessica, this is sick, she said when it was over. This is beyond sick. This is criminal. I nodded, wiping my eyes. What do? I asked. Rachel sat down across from me, her expression hard. You call James. Right now. You show him this video. And then you get them out of your life. All of them. I called James Caldwell. He answered immediately like he'd been waiting for my call. Jessica, what happened? He asked. I told him about the video, my voice shaking. He went quiet for a moment, then said, send it to me. Right now. I need to see it. I hesitated. The idea of sending that video to anyone, even my lawyer, made me feel sick. But I did it. I forwarded the file, then waited while he watched it. When he came back on the line, his voice was cold, professional. This is evidence of intentional infliction of emotional distress, possibly harassment, he said. We can use this. We're going to destroy them, Jessica. I'm going to make sure they pay for this. His words should have made me feel better, but they didn't. Nothing could make this better. Nothing could undo what I'd seen. James told me to stay calm, to not confront them yet. He wanted to build the case, gather all the evidence, make sure everything was airtight before we moved. But I didn't know if I could wait. The thought of sitting across from them at dinner tonight, pretending everything was fine, made me want to vomit. Rachel stayed with me all day. She made me eat, even though I couldn't taste anything. She sat with me on the couch, holding my hand, letting me cry when I couldn't hold it in anymore. You're going to get through this, she kept saying. You're stronger than they are. I wanted to believe her, but I felt broken, shattered. Like every piece of me had been ripped apart and scattered across the floor. Kyle came home around 6. He walked in with flowers, a cheap bouquet from the grocery store, and a smile that made my skin crawl. Happy anniversary, babe, he said, handing me the flowers. I took them, my hands numb, my face blank. Thanks, I said. My voice sounded hollow, distant, like it was coming from someone else. He didn't notice. He just went upstairs to change, whistling to himself like this was a normal day. My parents arrived an hour later, all smiles and laughter. My mom hugged me tight, her perfume overwhelming, suffocating. We're so happy to celebrate with you, she said. My dad clapped Kyle on the back, told him he was lucky to have me. The hypocrisy was so thick I could barely breathe. We sat down for dinner, the 4 of us around my dining table. My mom had made a roast, my favorite, which felt like another layer of cruelty. They talked and laughed, reminiscing about our wedding, about how happy they were for us. Kyle played along, smiling, touching my hand across the table. I sat there silent, picking at my food, feeling like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. At one point, my dad raised his glass. To Jessica and Kyle, he said, "May you have many more happy years together." Everyone clinked glasses. I lifted mine, my hand shaking, and took a sip. The wine tasted like acid. After dinner, my parents left. They hugged us both, told us to enjoy the rest of our evening, then walked out into the night. Kyle closed the door behind them, turned to me with that same smile. You okay? He asked. You've been quiet. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw him for what he was. A liar. A betrayer. A stranger wearing the face of someone I used to love. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. He nodded, kissed my forehead, and headed upstairs. I stood there in the hallway, my heart pounding, my fists clenched. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run after him and demand the truth. But I didn't. I went to my bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor with my phone. I opened the video again, forcing myself to watch it one more time. I needed to remember. I needed to hold on to this anger, this pain, because it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I wasn't going to confront them yet. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I was going to play their game, pretend everything was fine while I built my case. James had already started drafting divorce papers. Marcus was still gathering evidence. Rachel was helping me find a new place to live, somewhere my parents and Kyle would never find me. I was going to take everything from them. Their reputation, their credibility, their control over me. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd broken me. But they were wrong. I was done being their victim. I was done letting them walk all over me. This was war. And I was going to win. Over the next few days, I acted normal. I went to work, came home, made dinner, talked to Kyle like nothing had changed. My parents were still staying with us, still acting like loving, supportive family. I smiled at them, thanked them for their help, played the role of the grateful daughter. But inside I was seething. Every time my mom touched Kyle's arm, every time my dad laughed at one of Kyle's jokes, I felt my anger grow. I documented everything. I took photos, recorded conversations, saved text messages. I was building a case brick by brick, piece by piece. James told me I was doing great, that we had more than enough to bury them. But I wasn't satisfied. I wanted more. I wanted them to hurt the way they'd hurt me. One evening I came home early from work. I told Kyle I had a late meeting, but I canceled it, wanting to see what they'd do when they thought I wasn't around. I parked down the street, walked to my house quietly, and let myself in through the back door. The house was silent. I moved through the kitchen, my heart pounding, listening for voices. Then I heard them. Stairs. In my bedroom. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step careful, quiet. The door to my bedroom was open just a crack. I peered through and there they were. Kyle and my mother on my bed, tangled together. My father was sitting in the chair by the window, watching them, his expression pleased. I wanted to burst in. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make them see what they'd done to me. But I didn't. I pulled out my phone, started recording. I filmed them for 2 minutes, capturing everything, their faces, their voices, the betrayal happening in my own bed. Then I backed away, left the house the same way I'd come in, and drove to Rachel's apartment. I showed her the video. She didn't say anything, just pulled me into a hug and held me while I cried. When I finally stopped, she looked me in the eye. "You know what you have to do now," she said. I nodded. I knew. It was time to end this. I called James, told him I was ready to move forward. He said he'd have the divorce papers ready by morning. I called Marcus, told him to compile all the evidence into a single file. I was going to confront them, all of them, and I was going to make sure they never forgot what they'd done. The next day, I asked Kyle to meet me for lunch. He seemed surprised but agreed. We met at a cafe downtown, one of those quiet places with outdoor seating and overpriced sandwiches. He ordered for both of us, smiling like this was a nice surprise, like he was happy to spend time with me. When the food arrived, I slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" he asked, his smile fading. "Open it," I said. He did. Inside were printouts of all the evidence. Photos of him with my mother. Hotel receipts. Text messages. Screenshots from the videos. His face went white. He looked up at me, his mouth opening and closing like he was trying to find words. "Jessica, I can explain," he started. I held up my hand. "Don't," I said. "Don't insult me by lying. I've seen everything. I know everything." He sat back, his face crumbling. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean for this to happen." I laughed, bitter and cold. "You didn't mean for it to happen? You filmed it, Kyle. You sent it to me. On our anniversary." He shook his head. "That wasn't me," he said. "That was your mom. She wanted you to see it. She said it would be funny." Funny. The word hit me like a slap. My own mother thought destroying my marriage was funny. I stood up, grabbing the folder. "I'm filing for divorce," I said. "My lawyer has all the evidence. You're not getting a dime from me. You're not getting this house. You're getting nothing." Kyle reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Jessica, please," he said. "We can work this out." I shook my head. "There's nothing to work out. We're done." I walked away, leaving him sitting there, his head in his hands. I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my chest. 1 down. 2 to go. That evening I went home. My parents were in the living room watching TV like nothing was wrong. I stood in front of the screen, blocking their view. "We need to talk," I said. My mom looked annoyed. "Can this wait?" she asked. "We're watching our show." I turned off the TV. "No, it can't wait." I pulled out my phone, played the video they'd sent me. Played the video I'd recorded of them in my bedroom. Played the audio recordings Marcus had captured of them discussing their plan. My dad's face went pale. My mom's mouth fell open. "You've been spying on us," she said, her voice shrill. I smiled, cold and sharp. "You sent me a video of you having sex with my husband," I said. "On my anniversary. And you think I'm the problem?" My dad stood, his jaw tight. "You have no right," he started. I cut him off. "Get out of my house," I said. "Now." My mom started crying, her usual manipulative tactic. "We're your parents," she sobbed. "How could you do this to us?" I didn't flinch. "You did this to yourselves," I said. "You have 10 minutes to pack your things and leave, or I'm calling the police." They didn't move. So I pulled out my phone and dialed. My dad grabbed his jacket. "We're going," he said, his voice tight with anger. My mom followed, still crying, still trying to guilt me. But I didn't care anymore. I watched them pack their bags, watched them walk out my door, and I felt nothing but relief. The silence in my house after they left was absolute. No more footsteps overhead. No more voices drifting from the guest room. No more fake laughter echoing through the halls. I stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by the furniture Kyle and I had picked out together. The photos on the walls from our wedding. The life we'd supposedly built. Everything felt contaminated now, tainted by what had happened here. I walked through each room, turning on every light, reclaiming the space inch by inch. This was my home. Mine alone now. And I was going to fight like hell to keep it that way. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay in bed, the same bed where I'd caught Kyle and my mother, and stared at the ceiling until dawn broke through the curtains. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Kyle, from my mom, from my dad. Each one more desperate than the last. Kyle's messages ranged from apologetic to angry. "I'm so sorry, please let's talk about this," followed hours later by, "You can't just throw away our marriage like this, you're being unreasonable." My mother's texts were pure manipulation. "How could you turn your back on your own parents? We raised you, gave you everything, and this is how you repay us?" My father kept it short and threatening. "You're making a huge mistake, Jessica. You'll regret this." I blocked all 3 numbers before breakfast. James Caldwell called me at 8 in the morning sharp. His voice was businesslike but warm. "Jessica, I've got the divorce papers ready for filing. We're citing adultery, emotional cruelty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. With the evidence we have, Kyle won't have a leg to stand on. He's going to be served today." I felt a rush of satisfaction hearing those words. "Good," I said. "What about my parents?" James paused. "That's trickier. We can pursue a civil case for harassment and emotional distress, but it'll be a longer process. I'm also looking into whether there are any criminal charges we can file. What they did might constitute a form of psychological abuse or coercion. Keep documenting everything, every message, every attempted contact. It all helps build our case." I thanked him and hung up, feeling more determined than ever. Rachel came over later that morning with coffee and bagels. She found me in the kitchen, scrubbing the countertops for the 3rd time, trying to erase any trace of my parents' presence. "Girl, you need to eat something," she said, setting the food down. I stopped scrubbing, looked at my raw hands and realized I'd been cleaning for hours. Rachel pulled out a chair for me, and I sat, my body suddenly exhausted. "How are you holding up?" she asked. I shrugged. "I don't know. I feel numb mostly. Like this is all happening to someone else." Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's shock. It's normal. But you're doing everything right. You're taking control. That's what matters." I took a bite of the bagel, forcing myself to eat even though I had no appetite. "What happens now?" I asked. Rachel smiled. "Now you rebuild. You get through the legal stuff, you kick Kyle's ass in court, and then you move forward. You're not defined by what they did to you." That afternoon, Kyle was served with the divorce papers at his office. Marcus had arranged for a process server to deliver them during a client meeting, making sure it was as public and humiliating as possible. Kyle called me immediately, his number showing up even though I'd blocked it. He must have used a work phone. I answered just to hear what he'd say. "Jessica, what the hell?" he shouted. "You had me served at work? In front of my clients? Do you know how embarrassing that is?" I stayed calm. "Not as embarrassing as what you did to me," I said. Kyle went quiet. Then his voice changed, became pleading. "Jess, please. We can fix this. I love you. I made a mistake." I laughed, cold and bitter. "A mistake? Kyle, you had an affair with my mother. With both my parents. You filmed it. You let them send it to me. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. A lot of choices." He started to argue, but I cut him off. "I'm done, Kyle. Sign the papers or don't, but either way this marriage is over. And if you fight me, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Every client, every coworker, everyone in Portland." He went silent again. Then he hung up. Good. Let him stew in it. My parents tried a different approach. Instead of calling or texting, they showed up at my workplace. I was in a meeting with my team when Brandon, my coworker, knocked on the conference room door. "Jessica, your parents are here," he said, looking uncomfortable. "They're in the lobby and they're refusing to leave until they see you." I excused myself, my heart pounding with anger. I took the elevator down to the first floor. my heels clicking sharply against the marble as I walked toward the lobby. There they were, my mother sitting on the couch with red eyes and a tissue in hand, my father standing nearby with his arms crossed. When they saw me, my mother jumped up. "Jessica, sweetheart, please, we need to talk," she said, reaching for me. I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice low and firm. "You're not welcome here. Get out before I call security." My father's face hardened. "We're your parents," he said. "You can't just cut us out of your life." "I can and I am," I said. "You destroyed my marriage. You violated my trust. You sent me a video of you having sex with my husband. What did you think was going to happen?" My mother started crying louder, drawing the attention of everyone in the lobby. "You're overreacting," she sobbed. "It was a joke, we thought you'd understand." "A joke?" I felt my blood boil. "You thought ruining my life was funny?" My father stepped closer. "Watch your tone," he said, his voice threatening. I didn't back down. "Or what? You'll what exactly? Intimidate me some more?" I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling security. You have 30 seconds to leave." My mother grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "Jessica, please don't do this," she begged. I yanked my arm free. 20 seconds. My father finally moved, taking my mother by the elbow. "This isn't over," he said. "We'll see you in court." "Good," I said. "I'm counting on it." They left and I stood there shaking, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Brandon appeared beside me. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm fine. Just family drama." He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. I went back upstairs, locked myself in my office, and let myself breathe. The encounter left me rattled for the rest of the day. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't stop replaying the scene in the lobby. My mother's tears, my father's threats, the stares from my colleagues. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like everyone could see through me to the mess my life had become. When 5 o'clock finally rolled around, I grabbed my things and headed home, desperate for the sanctuary of my empty house. But when I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something wrong. The front door was slightly ajar. I'd locked it that morning, I was sure of it. My heart started racing. I sat in my car for a moment, debating whether to go inside or call the police. Then I saw movement through the window. Someone was in my house. I dialed 911 immediately, my hands shaking. "There's someone in my home," I told the dispatcher, giving her my address. "I'm outside in my car. Please send someone quickly." She assured me officers were on their way, and told me to stay in the vehicle with the doors locked. I did, watching the house, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 5 minutes felt like an eternity. Then I saw 2 police cruisers pull up, lights flashing. Officers jumped out, approached the house cautiously. One of them knocked, announced their presence. The front door opened and my father stepped out, his hands raised. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but the officers weren't buying it. They gestured for him to step outside, then went into the house. A moment later they brought out my mother. She was crying, of course, playing the victim again. One of the officers came over to my car. "Ma'am, are you the homeowner?" he asked. I nodded, getting out. "Yes, this is my house." "What are they doing here?" The officer explained that my parents claimed they'd left some belongings and had come to retrieve them. They said they still had a key. I felt anger surge through me. "I told them to leave weeks ago," I said. "They don't live here anymore. I want them arrested for trespassing." The officer nodded. "We can do that. Do you want to press charges?" "Absolutely," I said without hesitation. The officer went back to his partner, and they placed my parents in handcuffs. My mother wailed. "Jessica, how could you do this to us? We're your family." I turned away, unable to look at her. The officers put them in separate patrol cars and drove off. Another officer stayed behind to take my statement. I told him everything about the divorce, the video, the harassment. He listened carefully, taking notes. "You should consider getting a restraining order," he said. "With their behavior escalating, it's only a matter of time before things get worse." I thanked him and said I'd talk to my lawyer immediately. That evening I called James and told him what happened. He was furious on my behalf. "That's breaking and entering, Jessica. Combined with everything else, we have more than enough for a restraining order. I'll file the paperwork first thing tomorrow." I felt relieved but also exhausted. How much more of this could I take? James must have sensed my fatigue. "You're doing great," he said. I know this is hard, but you're almost through the worst of it. Once we get that restraining order, they won't be able to come near you." That gave me some comfort. I thanked him and hung up, then walked through my house checking every window, every door, making sure everything was locked tight. I didn't feel safe anymore, not even in my own home. That night I barely slept, jumping at every sound, convinced they'd come back. That evening I met with James again. He'd received a response from Kyle's lawyer. "They want to negotiate," James said. "They're offering you a settlement. Kyle keeps the car, you keep the house, split everything else down the middle." I shook my head. "No, I want everything. The house, the car, his retirement account. All of it." James raised an eyebrow. "That's aggressive. You might not get it all." "I don't care," I said. "I want to make him fight for every single thing. I want him to know what it feels like to lose everything." James nodded slowly. "All right, I'll let them know. But be prepared for this to get ugly." "It already is," I said. "It can't get worse." James didn't argue, but the look on his face told me he thought otherwise. Over the next few weeks, the legal battle intensified. Kyle's lawyer tried every tactic in the book to paint me as vindictive and unreasonable. They argued that I was letting my emotions cloud my judgment, that I was being spiteful. James countered with the evidence, the videos, the photos, the hotel receipts. He made it clear that Kyle had committed adultery in the most egregious way possible, and that I was entitled to everything. The judge seemed sympathetic, but warned both sides that this could take months to resolve. I didn't care. I had time, and I had truth on my side. Kyle tried to reach out several times, sending messages through mutual friends, asking if we could talk privately. I refused every time. There was nothing left to say. He'd made his choices, and now he had to live with the consequences. My parents went quiet for a while, which should have been a relief. But I knew them well enough to know they were planning something. Sure enough, 2 weeks after I kicked them out, I started hearing rumors. Friends from high school reached out, asking if I was okay, saying they'd heard I was having a breakdown. Coworkers started looking at me differently, whispering when I walked by. It didn't take long to figure out what was happening. My parents were spreading lies about me. They were telling anyone who would listen that I'd gone crazy, that I'd kicked them out for no reason, that I was unstable and vindictive. The rumors spread fast. Portland's a big city, but certain circles are small, and my parents knew how to work them. They painted themselves as victims, poor parents whose daughter had turned on them. They left out the part about the affair, the video, the betrayal. They made it sound like I was the villain. I called James immediately. "They're defaming me," I said, pacing my living room. "They're lying to everyone, destroying my reputation. Can we stop them?" James sighed. "Defamation cases are hard to prove and they take time. But yes, we can pursue it. I'll draft a cease and desist letter first. Make it clear that if they continue spreading false statements, we'll sue." That should scare them into backing off. I wanted more than a letter. I wanted them to hurt the way they'd hurt me. But James was right. Legal processes took time. So I agreed, and he sent the letter that same day. My parents received it within 48 hours. I know because my mother called me immediately, her voice shrill and panicked. "You're suing us now? Jessica, this is insane. How can you do this to your own family?" I didn't answer. I just hung up and blocked the new number she'd used. But the rumors didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. My mother went on social media, posting vague messages about betrayal and heartbreak, about how hard it was to be rejected by your own child. She didn't name me directly, but anyone who knew us could figure it out. Her friends flooded the comments with support, telling her she deserved better, that I was clearly in the wrong. My father joined in, posting about the pain of being cast aside after years of love and sacrifice. It was sickening. They were playing the victim card to perfection, and people were buying it. I wanted to respond, to post my own side of the story, to show everyone the videos and the evidence. But James warned me against it. "Don't engage," he said. "Anything you post can be used against you in court. Let them dig their own grave." I hated it, but I listened. I stayed silent while they dragged my name through the mud. Rachel was furious on my behalf. She wanted to confront my parents herself, to tell everyone the truth. But I stopped her. "It's not worth it," I said. "The truth will come out eventually. Right now, I just need to focus on getting through this." Rachel didn't look satisfied, but she backed off. Instead, she became my rock, checking in on me every day, making sure I was eating and sleeping, reminding me that I wasn't alone. I don't know what I would have done without her. My coworker Brandon also stepped up. He noticed the whispers at work, the way some people were avoiding me. One day, he pulled me aside. "I don't know what's going on," he said, "but I want you to know I've got your back. If anyone gives you trouble, you let me know." I thanked him, grateful for his support even though I couldn't tell him the full story. The preliminary divorce hearing was scheduled for early November. James prepared me thoroughly, going over every possible question the judge might ask, every argument Kyle's lawyer might make. "You're going to do great," he said. "Just stay calm, stick to the facts, and let the evidence speak for itself." The day of the hearing, I wore my best suit, my hair pulled back, my face composed. I walked into the courtroom and saw Kyle sitting with his lawyer, his face pale and drawn. He looked up when I entered, and for a moment our eyes met. I saw regret there, maybe even guilt, but it was too late for any of that. I took my seat beside James, and the hearing began. Kyle's lawyer argued that the marriage had been troubled for a long time, that both parties shared blame for its failure. He tried to paint Kyle as a victim of circumstance, someone who'd made a mistake but didn't deserve to lose everything. James didn't let him get away with it. He presented the videos, the photos, the hotel receipts. He laid out a clear timeline of the affair, showing how Kyle had systematically betrayed me with my own parents. The judge listened carefully, her expression neutral but her questions pointed. She asked Kyle directly if he'd been involved in filming the video. He hesitated, then admitted he had. She asked if he'd known it was being sent to me. Another hesitation, another admission. By the end of the hearing, it was clear the judge was not on his side. The judge didn't make a final ruling that day, but she granted me a temporary order. I got to keep the house, the car, and full access to our joint accounts. Kyle was ordered to stay away from me and from the property. He looked devastated as the judge read the order, his shoulders slumping, his hands gripping the edge of the table. I felt a surge of satisfaction. This was just the beginning. After the hearing, James and I went to a nearby cafe to debrief. "You did excellent," he said. "The judge is clearly sympathetic to your case. I think we're going to get everything you want." I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious yet. There was still too much left to do. "What about my parents?" I asked. James pulled out a file. "We're moving forward with the civil suit. I've got statements from Marcus, from Rachel, from your neighbors who witnessed their harassment. We're building a solid case. It's going to take time, but we'll get there." I thanked him and headed home, feeling the weight of the battle ahead but also a strange sense of peace. I was fighting back. I wasn't letting them win. That night, I got a message from an unknown email address. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam, but something made me open it. Inside was a message from my mother. "Jessica, I know you hate us right now, but please understand we never meant to hurt you. Everything that happened was a misunderstanding. We love you. We just want our family back. Please, let's talk. Let's fix this." I stared at the message, reading it over and over. A misunderstanding. That's what she was calling it. Not an affair, not a betrayal, not the most disgusting violation of trust one could imagine. A misunderstanding. I closed the email without responding. There was nothing to say. They'd had their chance to explain, to apologize, to make things right. They'd chosen instead to lie, to manipulate, to destroy me. I wasn't giving them another opportunity. The following week, I received a strange phone call. It was from a woman named Patricia, someone I didn't know. She said she'd seen the posts my parents had made on social media, and she had information I might want to hear. Skeptical but curious, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. Patricia was in her 50s, well-dressed, with a kind but serious demeanor. She sat across from me, her hands folded on the table. "I used to be friends with your mother," she said. "We went to the same book club in West Lynn. I stopped going about a year ago because of her behavior." I leaned forward. "What kind of behavior?" Patricia sighed. "Your mother was always very charming, very social. But she had this dark side. She'd flirt with married men, try to get between couples. She broke up at least 2 marriages that I know of. And your father, he'd encourage her. They seemed to get some kind of thrill out of it." I felt sick hearing this. "You're saying they've done this before?" Patricia nodded. I don't know if it ever went as far as what you're dealing with, but yes, they have a pattern. When I heard what they were saying about you, I knew it was lies. I wanted you to know the truth. I thanked her, my mind reeling. This wasn't just about me and Kyle. This was who my parents were. Serial manipulators, people who destroyed relationships for fun. Patricia gave me her contact information and said she'd be willing to testify if it came to that. I told James about the meeting and he was thrilled. This is gold, he said. It shows a pattern of behavior. It strengthens our case significantly. I felt a grim satisfaction. My parents had finally messed with the wrong person. As the days turned into weeks, I started to reclaim my life piece by piece. I redecorated the house, getting rid of anything that reminded me of Kyle or my parents. I painted the walls, bought new furniture, rearranged everything until it felt like mine again. Rachel helped, spending weekends with me picking out colors and fabrics, turning my home into a sanctuary. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects, volunteered for extra assignments, anything to keep my mind busy. Brandon noticed the change. You seem different, he said one day. Stronger, maybe. I smiled. I'm getting there, I said. It's a process. He nodded, understanding without needing details. I appreciated that more than he knew. The divorce proceedings dragged on, but James kept me updated on every development. Kyle's lawyer tried to negotiate again, offering me more of the assets in exchange for a quick settlement. James presented the offer to me, but I refused. I don't want his guilt money, I said. I want justice. James didn't argue. He went back to the negotiating table and made it clear I wasn't backing down. Kyle would have to face a full trial if he wanted to fight me. Apparently, that was enough to scare him. A week later, his lawyer called James with a final offer. Kyle would give me the house, the car, his retirement account, and half of his future earnings for the next 5 years. In exchange, I'd agree not to publicly disclose the videos or evidence. James brought the offer to me. This is a good deal, Jessica, he said. You'd be set financially, and Kyle would be ruined quietly. But if you want to go to trial, we can. We'll win, and everything will be public. I thought about it long and hard. Part of me wanted the world to know what Kyle had done, to see him humiliated publicly. But another part of me just wanted it to be over. I wanted to move on, to rebuild, to stop living in the shadow of their betrayal. I accepted the offer. We finalized the divorce in early December. I signed the papers in James' office, my hand steady, my heart lighter than it had been in months. It's done, James said, shaking my hand. You're officially free. I walked out of that office into the cold Portland air and felt like I could breathe again. My parents' civil case was still pending, but James was confident. With Patricia's testimony and all the evidence we'd gathered, he believed we'd win easily. The trial was scheduled for February. In the meantime, I focused on healing. I started seeing Dr. Patricia Wells, a therapist Rachel had recommended. First, I resisted. I didn't want to admit I needed help. But after a few sessions, I realized how much I'd been carrying, how much trauma I'd buried. Dr. Wells helped me process it all, helped me see that what happened wasn't my fault, that I deserved better. Therapy became a safe space, somewhere I could be vulnerable without judgment. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Not the person I was before all this, but someone new, someone stronger. Christmas came and went. I spent it with Rachel and her family, grateful for their warmth and kindness. I didn't hear from Kyle or my parents. They'd finally gotten the message. I was done with them, and nothing they could say or do would change that. As the new year began, I felt hopeful for the first time in months. I had my home, my job, my friends. I had my life back. And I was ready to move forward, to leave the past behind and build something better. The legal battles weren't over yet, but I knew I'd win. I'd fought too hard to lose now. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this